Now let's try to create our first layout. We will work with one space for now. So let's move panels here. Let's use the one space we already have. Let's expand our panel just to have more space. So let's start with new layout. As you can see, you are now in edit space dialog. You can click this button to edit the space and add buttons to it. Let's rename the space to, for example, main space. The space itself by default is a column, but I would recommend a new column. And you can add now here rows, columns, tabs. Tabs are available only in the basic version, so free and light versions won't have tabs. There won't be this button to add tabs group. Now as we have our main holder column, let's create a couple of rows. First button creates a column, second creates a row. As I mentioned, this one creates tabs, and this one lets you edit the column or delete the column. When you create a row, for example, let's call it healing. We will have healing buttons here. And here, as you can see, you can edit the row or delete the row. So you can see here, the indicator shows you if it's a column or a row. And if you want, for example, to edit the holder, you go to the holder and you can change label, color, and so on. We will get to this soon. Now when we have our row, let's add a few more columns in this row. And by the way, I would recommend to at least have in mind the wall layout you already want to have, because currently you can reorder items only on the same level. Moving between columns, spaces, panels is not available yet. I'm working on that, no timeline yet, but hopefully soon enough you will be able to move your buttons or rows to different rows or columns just to make it easier to design your layouts. So, as I mentioned, let's create in the row a couple columns and a button. Healing brushes, another column, cloning. And if you want to add in this row a button directly, you should click edit. Now, when you are in the row editing area, you can add button directly to the row. Let's call it content aware fill. As you can see, there are two columns and one button in the row. Let's click OK for now. In the layout editing, you can resize to fit more. So we have one row with a couple of columns and a button. Let's add another row where we will have a more complex layout, which you saw in the intro. Here we will have two columns. And in other tools, again, we will have two rows. So let's create. And in the first row, we again will have two columns. As you can see, as soon as you create rows, columns, buttons, everything appears on the panel. Some rows and columns have different borders. Dashed border means you won't see the border here on the panel, and solid border, the border is visible. So for example, I don't want to see the holder border here. Let's remove it. Just to make it easier, keep in mind that the very last edit buttons or adding new layout buttons are the space buttons. So if you click here, you are editing the space, not a row or a column. So basically the holder now is also, you can follow the border and you will see it's here. Let's remove the border for now and click OK. As you can see on the panel, it also changed right away, and holder now changed to the dashed border, so it's invisible. Let's now add a few buttons, just plain buttons. We will get to them later, where we will set up what buttons do. So for healing brushes, I will add just 2 buttons. Healing brush. Spot healing brush. Let's click OK for now. We will get back to them later. For cloning, I will have 3 buttons. CA move will be for content aware move. And here we already have the button. Anywhere in the layout, if you click on the button, you will have a button edit dialog, and here you can see this button will be for content aware fill. Also, as soon as you change something on the edit dialog, changes are visible right away on the panel. So in the complex layout, I will have 3 blurring buttons. Here in this first column we will have more complex layout. Later we will add tab group here, but for now let me just create a couple of rows and add some buttons. I see I made a couple of mistakes here. I wanted here to have a row in which I will again have multiple columns. Let me delete this column, and in this row holder I will add another row, and here we will have some selection tools and other. And in filter effects I could have made it differently. Let's rename it to render. and add some buttons. As you can see, when you add something here, it directly reflects here, and I already see I made a mistake. Instead of filters, I here added the render that I didn't want. So let us fix that. Let's go into editing, and instead of lens flare, let's have here camera raw, and instead of lighting effects, let's have here liquify. Now I have my full layout. Let's get to polishing it. So I want this all healing row to be a tiny bit separate from others. Let's go edit it and look at the row settings. What I want to have here is show the label. As you can see, label is already here. And let's change color to gray. Okay, we have a tiny bit of separation for this row. I'm fine with this. Now with healing brushes, I want to have a border and make it blue. And we have for columns, we have column size. You can pick one of 5 sizes. Let's choose it XS. Click OK. Then for cloning column, I don't want to have a border here. And I will leave default color, and I will choose the size of L. As you can see, it resized, or maybe it's too big. Let's change it to M. As you can see, it resizes accordingly to the set size of other column in the row. And button, let's leave it for now as it is. Let's move below. For complex layout, let's expand a bit. For complex layout, I don't want to have a border. I will just disable it. For blurring, I don't want a border here either. Let's change size to XS. Then for other tools, I don't want a border here, and let's change size to XL. As you can see, it tried to expand as much as it can. Click OK. If you have disabled options for labels and borders, it means you don't have any buttons inside this row. You can't change anything if the row is empty. So I see I made a mistake again. This is not the layout I was going for. And as I mentioned, there is no move tool yet to move columns or rows outside to the different level. I will have to delete this tools row and add it to the separate column. If you want to delete whole row with both columns, you just click on delete, delete every button that was inside every row column. If you had complex layout inside, everything is gone. Let me just recreate everything how I wanted. You already know how to do this, so I'll speed up and we'll get back to you soon. I recreated this tools row where I wanted it, next to this first column, where we have some layer actions and smart filters. Let's continue with polishing, and I don't want this row to have border. Let's turn it off. I also want this column to be orange. Let's change the color to orange. Let's leave the size as a default. We will see. Maybe later we will change it. then I will leave other columns and everything as is for the color, but layer actions, I don't want to have it a border either. I will remove it. For tools, I want this to be violet. And I don't want mix or selections have a border. So I will just remove it. For smart filters, I actually want to show the label. Okay, so layout is done. It's getting closer to what we had in the intro video. And I want to show some things that you might want to know. First thing is for the rows, if you double click, you can collapse the rows in the panel. Yeah, same here. It doesn't matter where the row is located. If you double click on the title, you can expand or collapse it. Also, if you right click on the title, it directly opens this row edit dialog and you can change it here. Also, as I mentioned, you can move items inside the row. For example, I want healing to be second or last. I can just click these arrows and you can move items around. But let's leave it as it was. Let's continue setting up tabs in the next video.